The dust settlements of Kepler-7 had been quiet that morning. Too quiet. Marcus stood on the wooden platform overlooking the village square, his weathered hands gripping the railing as he watched the sky turn amber with the approach of midday. He was a man who had learned patience over his 60 years, learned it from raising children who are now grown, learned it from watching sunsets on 3 different planets, learned it from the loss of his wife 14 years ago to a fever this colony had never managed to cure. He owned the grain storehouse on the edge of the settlement, the oldest structure on the compound. The wood had been brought from Earth as seed material, saplings that had taken root in this alien soil and grown into something strong and enduring. Much like the people, he thought. Much like himself. The notification came through the colony communication system just after noon. An official announcement. Cold. Procedural. A refugee transport from the Kel system had crashed beyond the northern ridge during an emergency descent. The colony would need to mount a recovery operation. All able-bodied persons were requested to participate. Marcus read the words twice, noting what was not said. The Kel people were not human. That was the part everyone understood without it being stated. The part that made the decision complicated. Marcus made his way to the assembly point, moving with the deliberate care of someone whose body had learned to negotiate gravity on multiple worlds. His joints remembered younger days, even if his muscles had learned newer limitations. The gathering was subdued. Perhaps 50 colonists had assembled, miners mostly, along with some of the farming families who had made homes in this valley. Administrator Wells stood near the communication tower, her expression suggesting she already knew how this would unfold. "We will conduct a recovery operation," she announced, her voice carrying the certainty of someone whose authority was rarely questioned. The Kel craft carried refugees seeking political asylum from their homeworld. However, given our limited resources and the strain on our life support systems, we will be selective about who we bring back to the settlement. We will prioritize individuals who can contribute to our colony's development. We will not accept any dependents who cannot work or contribute meaningfully. This is not a decision I make lightly, but it is the decision we must make to survive. Marcus listened to the murmur of assent from the gathered crowd. It made logical sense. It followed the mathematics of survival, and it settled in his chest like a stone. They found the wreckage 3 hours later, still smoldering among the rock formations of the northern ridge. The ship was smaller than Marcus had expected, little more than a transport shuttle really, designed for moving people quickly rather than safely. The emergency beacon was still broadcasting when they arrived, a steady pulse of electromagnetic hope that had summoned them across the wasteland. The first person they pulled from the rubble was a female, appearing to be in her middle years, her blue skin marked with patterns that suggested lineage or status. Her name was Vanessa, and she spoke through their translation system in a voice that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 worries. She moved with the careful precision of someone checking herself for injuries before agreeing to be moved, and when she finally nodded that it was acceptable to transport her, her eyes kept looking back toward the wreckage. "My daughters," she kept repeating through the translator. "My daughters are still inside. Nira is 11. Talon is only 3. Please. They are young. They are good. Please do not leave them." Administrator Wells turned to her team, her jaw tightening. "Search the rest of the craft. We need to confirm all survivors." The rescue teams moved through the twisted metal carefully, aware that each moment of handling the wreckage risked further collapse. It took them perhaps 20 minutes to find the children, both alive, both afraid, huddled in what had been the passenger compartment. They were brought out into the light and placed beside their mother. Nira was old enough to understand danger. Her blue skin was darker than her mother's, with silver markings that seemed to shimmer in the afternoon light. She held her smaller sister close, one arm around tiny Talon, whose skin was the softest blue imaginable, barely marked with the faintest silver patterns. Talon could not have been more than 3 years old, as her mother had said. Her eyes were enormous, reflecting the sky and the strange world she had just crashed into. Veressa pulled both children close, checking them for injuries with the quick efficiency of a parent who had done this before, checking them urgently and thoroughly. She looked up at Wells with an expression that transcended language. The translator barely needed to work for Marcus to understand the plea written across her face. "My older daughter can help," Veressa said, gesturing to Nira. "She is strong. She learns quickly. But Talon is small yet. She cannot work." "I understand. We can stay. I can work. But please. She is only 3 years old. Please do not make her stay alone in the wreckage. Please do not leave her behind." The silence that followed seemed to stretch across the entire ridge, across the colony, across the vast distance between worlds. Marcus found himself holding his breath. Wells consulted quietly with her team, then turned back to Veressa. "We can take you and Nira. The older daughter has value for the colony, but regulations are explicit. We cannot take dependents who cannot contribute. The younger one would require resources we do not have. I am sorry, but this is the mathematics of survival on a new world." Veressa's face crumpled, but she held herself together with visible effort. She looked down at Talon, and for a moment, Marcus saw something in her expression that he recognized with painful clarity. He had seen it once before, on the face of his wife the night before she died, when she had asked their older daughter to promise to look after her younger siblings. He had seen it on the faces of refugees on every world where he had lived. It was the face of a parent being asked to choose between pieces of their own heart. "Talon," Veressa said softly, kneeling down to look into her daughter's enormous eyes. "Talon, baby, listen to me. We are going to go with these people. They have a place for us. A safe place." Talon's lip trembled. "Mama, I do not want to go. I am afraid." "I know, sweet one," Veressa said, and Marcus could hear the break in her voice even through the translation system. "I know. Mama, are you coming?" There was a long silence. Veressa looked up at Wells, then back at her daughter. "Yes, baby. Yes, I am coming. We are all coming." Wells stepped forward, her hand raised. "That is not what we agreed. Nira can come. You can come. The youngest cannot. These are the decisions we must make to survive." Marcus did not understand, later, what possessed him to speak.
He was a quiet man.
He had learned not to make speeches, not to draw attention to himself, learned over decades that his personal opinions mattered less than the collective survival. And yet, standing on that ridge, with the ancient wind of an alien world blowing across his weathered face, he found himself stepping forward. "I will take responsibility for the child," he said. Wells turned to him, her expression sharpening. "You do not understand the strain this places on our resources, Marcus. You are a grain keeper, not a resource manager. You do not see the full picture of what we are trying to accomplish here." "No," Marcus agreed quietly. "I see something simpler. I see a 3-year-old child. I see a mother who is being asked to make an impossible choice. I have been asked to make impossible choices before. I have been forced to live with the consequences. I would not wish that on anyone, and I will not sit in silence while it happens in front of me. Your personal morality does not override colony regulations." "No," Marcus said. "But my private resources do. I have the grain stores. I have dry living space in my storehouse. I have resources sufficient to support one small child for 6 months or more. After that, either this colony will have found a use for her skills, or we will have found another solution. But I will not let her be left behind. Not if I can prevent it." The argument continued for another few minutes, but Marcus had already made his position clear, and the rest of the colony seemed to sense that he would not be moved. Wells was clever enough to understand that forcing the issue would create more problems than it solved. She had the power to refuse, but she also had to manage the people who would come to remember that moment. "You take full responsibility," she said finally. "If resources are strained, that responsibility falls on you and no one else." "Understood," Marcus said. The journey back to the settlement was conducted in silence and careful deliberation. Marcus rode in the transport vehicle with Varessa, Nira, and Talon. The mother and her daughter sat together, the trauma of the crash and the impossibility of the choice they had just escaped still fresh on their faces. Nira watched Marcus with dark eyes that seemed far too wise for her age. Talon had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder, her small body finally allowing itself to relax now that separation had been prevented. "Why did you do that?" Varessa asked as the vehicle climbed the ridge road back toward the colony. "You do not know us. We are strangers from another world." Marcus considered the question carefully. "I have lived a long time," he said. "Long enough to understand that survival is not just about having enough food and water and air. It is also about maintaining the part of ourselves that makes us human. Or in your case, Cal. If we begin making decisions only about mathematics and resources, we lose something essential. Eventually, what we survive as is not worth surviving for." Varessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out her blue hand and placed it gently on his weathered one. "In my language, there's a word for this," she said. "Maresh. It means the courage to do what is right when it costs you something. It means seeing someone suffering and deciding that your own comfort matters less than their need. Thank you. Thank you for your Maresh." The storehouse became a temporary home. Marcus cleared out the eastern corner, an area that had been used for storage but was structurally sound and had good ventilation. He used some of his personal supplies to create living quarters, nothing fancy, but clean and warm. He brought in blankets that had been his wife's, unable to use them himself, but unwilling to throw away something that had been loved by someone he had cherished. Varessa and her daughters adapted to their new circumstances with remarkable grace. Nira began helping in the grain stores within days, learning the inventory system and the careful management of resources. She was quick and intelligent and seemed genuinely interested in understanding how the settlement functioned. Talon, for her part, simply existed as a child exists, moving through the days with wonder and acceptance, playing in the dust outside the storehouse, befriending the handful of other children in the settlement. 2 months into their residency, Administrator Wells arrived at Marcus's storehouse with a proposal. The agricultural department wanted to hire Nira for the crop management project. They were experiencing unexpected success with the grain yields, and they believe her observation skills could help develop new techniques for this specific planetary environment. The position came with a stipend and with it, official citizenship status in the colony. "This accomplishes what we intended," Wells said, and Marcus could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "The daughter has value. She contributes. The settlement prospers. The system functions." "What about Talon?" Marcus asked. "The child remains your responsibility as agreed," Wells said. "However, we have also determined that she is not a burden on the colony's resources, contrary to our earlier projections. Your storehouse has become more efficient, not less so. The grain yields have improved. Some of this is likely due to improved management from Nira, but some of it appears to be related to better environmental conditions in the storage area, which interestingly seems to correlate with when your family members began residing there." Marcus understood what she was saying without her needing to explain it further. The settlement was practical above all else. If something worked, it was kept. If it cost less than expected, that cost was recalibrated. Talon had become acceptable because she no longer counted as an expense. "I am glad," he said simply. That night, he sat with Veressa and the children outside the storehouse, watching the sun set over the red rock formations that surrounded their settlement. The sky turned shades of purple and gold. Talon was curled against Marcus's side, half asleep, her small hand resting on his arm. Nira sat with her mother, the two of them talking in their own language about the new responsibilities Nira had undertaken. "I received word today," Veressa said, switching to the common language. "From my homeworld. My family there learned that we survived the crash. They are grateful. They are also beginning to understand what it means that we cannot return for some time, perhaps not ever. We have chosen to build a life here instead." "Is that difficult?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Veressa said without hesitation. "It is very difficult. To flee home is to carry grief with you always. But it is also a gift. We have been given a second chance. Talon has been given a chance that she would not have had on our world, where she would have been considered a problem, a burden on the state. Here she is simply a child. She is simply loved." Marcus nodded slowly. He understood something of what she meant. He had left Earth when he was younger, seeking opportunity, seeking escape from a world that held too many memories. He had returned many times, in spirit if not in body, through letters and messages, and through the raising of children who would never know Earth except through stories. But he had also found something here, on worlds that were not his own, in communities of people who had all chosen to begin again. "I have been thinking," Veressa said, "about what you said on the ridge, about survival being more than mathematics. I have been thinking about the part of ourselves that makes us human or Kel. I wonder if that part that cares for each other, I wonder if that is what we were supposed to have become all along. I wonder if that is what we are becoming now, here together." Marcus looked at her. This woman from another world, this mother who had been willing to sacrifice everything for her children, this refugee who was building a home in a place she had never imagined. He thought of his wife, gone 14 years, and the children who carried her forward through their own lives. He thought of the long journey that had brought him to this ridge, to this moment, to this small blue child sleeping against his shoulder. "I think you might be right," he said quietly. The settlement continued its work of survival and building. The seasons turned in their alien rhythm, the red sky deepening and lightening, the crops growing or failing according to the mathematics of soil and water and light. Nira became instrumental in the agricultural development program, her insights into alien soil chemistry eventually helping increase the colony's food production by nearly 30%. She became a respected member of the community, spoken of with admiration and trust. Talon grew. She learned the settlement's languages, played with the human children, and became, in the way that children do, simply part of the fabric of daily life. In the way of communities built by refugees and the desperate, no one asked her much about her origins or her status. She was present. She participated. She was one of them. And Marcus, the grainkeeper who had stepped forward at a crucial moment, found that he had built something he had not expected to build again after his wife's death. He had built a family, not through blood, but through choice and commitment, and the daily small sacrifices that love requires. He had built a home with people who were, by most standard definitions, complete strangers. But they had become, through the particular alchemy of shared struggle and mutual choice, something far more important than that. Years later, when Marcus was in his 70s, he would sit outside the storehouse with Talon, who had grown into a capable and intelligent young woman, and he would think about the moment on the ridge when he had chosen to speak. He would wonder what would have happened if he had remained silent, as he had been silent in so many other moments of his long life. He would wonder what Talon's life would have been like if that single moment had gone differently. But mostly, he knew that the answer did not matter. Because what he had learned over decades of living on alien worlds and in temporary communities was that the future was not set. It was something that was written moment by moment, through thousands of small choices, through the accumulation of decisions about who we wanted to become and what we believed we were capable of. A 3-year-old child was simply a 3-year-old child. She was also a future. She was also a possibility. She was also a person worthy of dignity and care and inclusion in the community that had taken her in. In the end, that was really what it came down to. Not the mathematics of survival, though those calculations mattered, but the mathematics of the heart, which had its own terrible and beautiful way of multiplying meaning whenever someone decided that their own comfort was worth sacrificing for someone else's need. Marcus had learned this lesson at the cost of tremendous loss. He was grateful, in his quiet way, that it was a lesson that younger people and other worlds would now have the chance to learn from his example, without needing to pay quite such a high price for the knowledge. The sun set again over the settlement, painting the sky in impossible colors, and the grain-keeper sat with his unexpected family and watched the stars come out, one by one, the same stars that shone on a dozen different worlds, beautiful and indifferent and constant. And he was content. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If this tale of compassion and unexpected family touched your heart, I would be deeply grateful if you would take a moment to like this recording. Your support means everything. Please share this story with friends and family who might find meaning in it. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss these stories of hope and human connection. And if you have thoughts about the story, about what Marcus chose to do, about what you might have done in his place, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear your reflections. Thank you again for spending this time in these worlds with me.